I just can't believe that losing, how much did he lose? 15, 17 pounds, whatever.
Dylan can't imagine losing 17 pounds, can you? That's pretty obvious.
Even with his fat-free water.
Yeah, you got fat-free water?
Got fat-free water.
Oh, what the?
Someone's going to be very excited to see that in the comments section. Hello and welcome back to Dodgers Debate. I'm Jack Harris, the LA Times Dodger beat writer, along with our columnists, Bill Plaschke and Dylan Hernández, who I know were both so heartbroken to not be on flights to Minnesota this morning to go cover Game 6 of Lakers Timberwolves.
Let's clarify here. It's not flights plural. There was only one guy who was going to have to go to Minneapolis.
What are you holding up? Plaschke's holding up a T-shirt.
They've had to the game. It says, LA Los Angeles Lakers playoffs. Wrap it up. Throw it away. Lakers done.
I keep forgetting to do this. Podcast listeners, Plaschke just threw a Lakers T-shirt across our studio here.
Yeah, I think Laker fans would do the same. But I have a question. So, Dylan, were you cheering for the Timberwolves because you don't have to go to Minnesota?
I am an objective journalist. I watch it completely like in a state of zen.
Hey, the Dodgers, they're winning games again. 5 in a row on this last homestand. They're tied for the best record in baseball with the Mets entering play today on Thursday. A lot of things are going right, which we can get to in a minute. The only problem with this last week is that everybody's favorite topic is back, which is pitcher injuries. Tyler Glasnow is on the IL with shoulder inflammation. The Dodgers are going into a 10-game road trip and a 19 games in 20 days stretch with currently 4 healthy starters, if you don't want to count Ben Kasparius or Casperino or whatever names you've called him the last couple weeks. So for all the good that's happened on the field, like how concerned are you guys about yet another pitching injury to somebody who has yet another kind of lengthy history of this sort of thing happening in Tyler Glasnow?
Well, I know their bullpen has racked up more innings than anybody else in baseball by far. And I think that's trouble. I mean, that's worrisome. And is Tyler Glasnow, could he be the worst signing in Dodger history? Could he end up being the worst? I mean, Dylan called it. I remember the column he wrote when he said, "You called it."
I'm sure I did. I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
Called being the worst signing or not staying healthy?
Not staying healthy.
Because one of those takes is hotter than the other.
Yeah, I mean, I was around for Andrew Jones. That was pretty bad.
I think that it's troublesome. The bullpen's been used so much. It's gonna catch up to him. I think that's worrisome. I think it's very worrisome. I mean,
to me, right, it's still the regular season's going to be fine. This is not a new problem, and every year they just kind of glide into the postseason. I think kind of the disconcerting part, right, the thinking kind of was, well, they have enough arms now where they can maybe kind of play with this a little bit, right? And I mean, they are doing this in part with Ohtani, right? He's probably not going to be back before the All-Star break, it sounds like at this point, and right, so that basically that they can line up the way they want in October. And I think
similar situation with Blake Snell, who they've kind of slow played after initially expecting a shorter absence.
But when you kind of see this kind of playing out like this, the concern obviously is that this is going to look like last year, where it's like, okay, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag of who's going to be available in October, right? You can't plan this stuff. Injuries happen, and they happen to guys that have been injured before. And as well as
Has Tyler Glasnow been hurt before? Yeah. The one thing about these injuries that's different than last year is I still don't really see a scenario where they're going to be like out of starting pitchers in October. Like that seems very unlikely still. Because even with this stretch they're in now, like Snell and Glasnow will be back at some point. How well they look when they come back, I think especially with Glasnow.
Catman.
Yeah, Tony Gonsolin's back, pitched well.
Hey, you ever called him Catman in the story? Please say no. Don't call him Catman.
I don't think so. I mean, I've made
That's
references
a dumb nickname,
to the cat things.
Yeah, the cat. So he has cats on his cleats. So he's Catman?
Well, he's got cats at home, too.
I kind of have a feeling if anybody out here has called him Catman, it's you, Flash.
Yeah, you're probably right. In fact, somebody give me my phone. I can Google and check. Just Google Bill Plaschke and Catman.
Potts is going to look that up.
Okay, so say it is like Gonsolin, whatever, the Game 4 starter. You don't think that's a bullpen game? I mean, because at this point, I'm looking at the rotation right now, assuming right between, Snell starts, Glasnow starts for sure, Yamamoto starts for sure. After that, aren't we kind of just looking at guys where you're all kind of right? If it's Roki Sasaki, I have a feeling that's a bullpen game. If it's Gonsolin, that could be a bullpen game. If it's May, it could be a bullpen game.
That's true. That was also the case last year when they had 3 guys.
Right.
I mean, basically,
Right.
half
And
the
so,
starts.
right. And I'm just kind of making the argument that it could actually be like last
Yeah,
year.
but I think they're going to be, again, like last year, you got to the postseason, you had 3 healthy starters, one of whom was not good at really any point of the regular season, and Walker Buehler, one of whom was bad every other time he took them out in the postseason, and Jack Flaherty. I mean, it's possible, like the stat, like enough injuries happen where they go into the postseason, you only have 2 or 3 reliable guys. My guess is you're going to get to the end of the year, Yamamoto stays healthy. Okay.
Our producer, Mark Potts, here has informed us that Plaschke has called him the cat man.
Oh my God, this is unbelievable. This is so bad.
Called him Top Cat in the head.
I suck so bad.
So, okay, Catman, what does it feel like to be called the new staff ace?
This week's ace.
Oh God.
Who on this pitching staff have you not called the ace yet? Roki?
I'm so humiliated. I'm the worst columnist in America.
Between Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow, and I'd still put Ohtani in this category, at least for now. Like, you're probably going to have at least 2 of those guys that's in a place to pitch come October. And then you'll have some actual depth behind them, too. And maybe some of those games end up being like you only need 3 or 4 innings out of Tony Gonsolin. That's still better than getting 0 innings from whoever was in Game 4. Right. So that's why, like...
But that's like a half bullpen game, isn't it?
Yeah, but even like a half bullpen game in the playoffs is a much better place to be in than having to do, full bullpen games multiple times a series. The concern from all this, I think, is what Plaschke said, is that in the meantime, like this stretch they're coming up on, I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle pitching-wise. I think Ben Kasparius will probably get stretched out to kind of start or, do a hybrid kind of 3-4 inning bulk thing as part of a bullpen game. They can go and do another spot start with a Landon Knack or a Bobby Miller if they want. But like the burden that's on the bullpen now through this opening month, and that's going to continue to be for at least the next couple weeks until Clayton Kershaw gets back, is a serious thing. And it's a serious thing because like the Dodger relievers threw 82 innings in the playoffs last year, I think was the number. Half of them were basically pitching through injuries for most of October. A bunch of them came into camp still nursing injuries. And now you're asking them to take on a big workload early in the season after all of that. That to me is a concern. And that's something that is going to be difficult to navigate over the next couple weeks when you have all these games, and especially if you're not getting great starts from the few healthy starters you do have at the moment. And that's something that just sets that group up for failure over the rest of the year if you ride them really hard early in the season. And my guess is because of some of the instability in the rotation, like keeping the bullpen healthy and pitching well, like the bullpen was the number one reason they won the World Series last year in the playoffs, maybe. Like that was the most consistent and valuable group probably for what they did. I mean, they're the reason that they got through that Padres series and won Game 4 on the road facing elimination. And I just don't like the idea that all these guys who are coming off this huge workload from last October are now being thrust into like going into Tuesday. They already had like 6 guys with more than 13 innings pitched on the year. No other team had more than 4, and most teams only had 2 or 3. So that is something where last year the starting pitching injuries, the biggest impact was on the rotation, right? Just because they didn't have the depth to withstand it. This year, I think the rotation's probably going to end up looking okay in the long run. But the more you tax the bullpen now, the bigger question that group's performance becomes long-term. And I think that's kind of the balancing act Dave Roberts is trying to be careful of. And it's talked about, like that's his biggest concern so far.
So is your concern with the bullpen this is more about October then?
Yeah. I mean,
you're still with me as far as like the regular season's fine.
Yeah, no, and I think the regular season.
Those are 2 kind of separate issues,
yes,
right?
But what you don't want to have happen is to get through the regular season, you're having to ride your bullpen so hard that when you get to the stretch run of the year, when you get to October, I mean, and if they don't play as well as we're expecting them to, I mean, even September could be an important month. They had to ride the bullpen really hard last September just to win the division and put themselves in the kind of position they were going into.
I don't know if you read, but they have an ace to trade in Bobby Miller.
It's just funny. Everybody talks about how this bullpen worked last year, but that was an anomaly. It never worked before, and I think the Dodgers just think it can work again. And I think they're wrong.
It kind of worked. Now these were very small samples in the previous postseasons, but it kind of worked. The offense wasn't good enough. The rotation was really not good enough to make it matter. But I think you can rely on the bullpen in a big way in October. It's just that it's a lot harder to do if all those guys have been used heavily in the regular season, coming off of what was already a shortened off season. Like, this is where the cost of the injuries they're sustaining now could have some impact down the road, I think, is if you ride those guys too much.
I'm kind of with Plasch on this, though, right? Because I do think that, like, again, but that's kind of all kind of part of their off-season strategy, right? Is, kind of get these high ceiling guys at relatively low cost. And sure, like, if Glasnow, doesn't get hurt, like, sure, you're getting maybe a $300 million pitcher for 125 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason he's discounted, right? It's you go, buy a used car and it's too cheap. Like, there's a reason the price tag is.
Yeah,
what it is.
all these bullpen guys, they're so unselfish. They talk about, we'll do anything for the team, we'll pitch anywhere, and they're all throwing their arms out. They're all
Blake Trinan.
Blake Trinan
is already a big piece of the bullpen that's gone down with an injury that's probably going to keep him out for a while. They still don't have Michael Kopech. Evan Phillips just came back from an injury. There's some other guys that were battling things in October last year that had to work through them early in camp. So that is kind of my concern from this. With Glasnow specifically, just to ask it bluntly, like, do you think he's ever going to be able to stay healthy over an extended period of time? And if not, like, how do you manage this? Because I think right now the case for him the rest of the season is, if you're the Dodgers, you're probably like, okay, the issue here is that he changed his throw in the offseason, trying to take pressure off his elbow, which he thought he did. The problem is that his new throw put some strain on his shoulder that he wasn't expecting. Yeah, I mean, it's like injury whack-a-mole.
I was turned off Glasnow when he complained about the weather in Philadelphia. So here's the question. It's not whether he's healthy or not. It's, can he pitch hurt? Will he pitch hurt?
Or when things are maybe not even hurt, but just
sore,
when things aren't aligned. Right. When, and that was the reason that this injury or this episode is a little more concerning to me, just when it comes to like that question of, is he ever going to be able to stay healthy, is that he was so confident about the changes he made this offseason, the way he was throwing the ball in the spring. He came into the year, he had a great couple outings at the end of spring training. He had a really good first outing in the regular season against the Braves. And he talked about, I'm really confident in the changes I've made. I can be athletic and free and clear on the mound in my thought process, which is something the Dodgers have tried to want to get him out of his own head and thinking about his mechanics in games. And the fact that, like, less than a month, like, I wrote about this, like, I used all these quotes, like, this is what he was saying a month ago, and now we're back in a place where it's not just that he's hurt, but it's that, he's pinpointing, like, well, now my throw is causing this issue. And the more this happens, I think the more it's fair to wonder, like, is he ever going to get in a place where he finds a delivery that doesn't cause him discomfort, that allows him to maximize what are still really, really, really impressive physical skills? And if not, like, how do you manage that if you're the Dodgers, right? Are you basically just playing for, we might get 2 healthy months out of him, so let's try to time it up to where they're the 2 months that are most important of the season?
He's getting paid a lot of money. He plays on a team where players all play with nicks and dings and injuries. I'd like to see him show more metal on the mound. I'd like to see him go out there more. I'd like to see him more strength from him.
Yeah, but some guys just kind of don't have that, right? I mean, again, I think, and that's why, like, what Jack was talking about was so important, that he was, okay, like, obviously injuries are physical, right? And when he's saying, I feel confident I'm not going to get hurt, I mean, that's all in his head, right? That's separate from, like, the physical reality of things. But the reason it was good was because, like you said, right, he can, if you don't, like, fully, you're right, a lot of pitchers talk about, like, being committed to throwing a certain pitch, right? That you need to throw it. Kershaw talks about this a lot. You need to throw pitches with conviction. And if you don't, they're going to get hit at the major league level. And so, yeah, like, I think this is a problem, right? Because okay, let's just say, okay, well, you know what? Let's just, like, not pitch this guy at all for the first 4 months of the season, and you throw him out there. Well, now the variables have changed all of a sudden, right? And I'm not sure he's the type of guy that could perform under those circumstances.
So he was a bad sign.
He was.
Can we admit he was a bad sign?
I mean,
They shouldn't have extended
They're not
him.
getting the production out of him that you would expect for the money they paid him and the years they gave him.
And kind of on the opposite side of this spectrum, right, is, and kind of a guy that's going to be pitching under, right, different variables here is Ohtani. And he is the guy, right, you take him in a dome stadium in Japan, you stick him in Korea after this gambling scandal starts to break. This guy is going to like find a way to perform, I feel. Now, again, but they're
coming
also
out of the bullpen in the WBC.
coming out of the bullpen of the WBC. That said, this is also a physical issue. And we can't forget that when he first tried to come back in, 2020, right? Off the first Tommy John, because he was hurt in 18, sat out 19, comes back in 2020.
Terrible.
He only made 2 starts that year, neither of which, did he even complete an inning in either one?
He got to the second inning in the second one, and then it blew
Sorry,
up on him
I
again.
shortchanged him there. But, there are like some physical realities here, and we're not going to really know. Now, I think if Ohtani's in any kind of shape to pitch, right, you kind of throw him in the Kershaw bunch, right? That like, hey, if this guy has a chance to perform,
When's he going to pitch?
He's gonna-
When's Ohtani going to pitch?
I'd put the over-under somewhere around the All-Star break, probably.
yeah, I say a little bit after that.
Yeah. But I think what the other impact of these early season injuries is, there was some school of thought out there about should the Dodgers really try to bring Ohtani back to pitch this season? Like, if the rest of your rotation's in a good spot, is it worth the risk of him getting hurt like he did in 2020? He after those 2 starts had an elbow injury. He kept hitting but was not good at all at the plate that season. So there was some thought, like, should they bring him back? Should they just shut him down if they have enough pitching? I think this first month has been a reminder
Bring
that
him back.
they're going to have to bring him back at some point.
This is what he's getting paid for. This is why he's so valuable.
Yeah, and you want, like, again, if you're going to build your rotation with a bunch of, wild cards on the health front, then you need as many cards in your hand as possible to play come the end of the season.
Hey, Plash, you saw what Jack just did to us, right? He just blew up a column.
Preview the column.
What a bad
We're
teammate.
going on a 10-game road trip, dude. Unless you
teammate.
guys are writing columns from home.
Bad teammate.
Yeah. So what about Max Muncy?
All right, Max Muncy. That's today's
Everybody's
story.
favorite topic.
He hit a home run. That was good.
That was his first.
I mean, look, Max Muncy does not start seasons well. And this year has been particularly bad because he tried to change his swing. He thought he was trying to get more on top of the ball. So last year he hit like 75% of his balls in the air. This year during the offseason in the spring, he was trying to hit more line drives, more ground balls, trying to be a more consistent hitter. Problem is, I think we talked about this on the show before, but like it got him out of his swing mechanics. He was lurching forward at the plate. He wasn't giving himself time to see the ball. He's tried to fix some of that. I don't think, just kind of generally, like his first month had been overly concerning long term, except for the fact that there was not the power component, right? Like we've seen Max Muncy bat 175 through April before.
With 40 home runs, yeah.
Yeah, but exactly. Usually the home runs kind of compensate for the lack of production and the other parts of his game. And the fact that he wasn't hitting for power and like the defense, which outside of a few games has really regressed from where it was last year, that was the concerning part. And I think that's the thing to watch moving forward is, does the power come back? Like, can he get back on like a 25, 30 home run pace? And then can he keep drawing walks and taking better at-bats like he has the last couple weeks? If he can, like, look, I know a lot of people have kind of been wondering, like, what do you do with this guy, right?
Don't
like,
trade him. You got to keep him. He's
Right.
the heart and soul of the clubhouse. He I believe he was perfect in the NLCS last year. Everybody forgets how.
Yeah, he got on base 12 straight times. That was a postseason record. And actually last year, like overall, even though it was a little up and down at times and he missed a bunch of time with injury, like his overall numbers were some of the best of his career. And I think that's why, like, Max Muncy was always going to be in a difficult spot this season because there was so much buzz around Nolan Arenado and the offseason and the fact that Arenado wanted to come to the Dodgers and, kind of looked like he was waiting to see if the Dodgers might come to him and, declining trades to other teams and all that. At no point did the Dodgers really make a serious push there. And the reason they didn't is because they still had that much faith in Max Muncy to be an everyday third baseman. Okay, one more thing. Mookie Betts, who has had a very interesting opening month. The shortstop play has actually been good. Like, I describe it as like average, maybe even above average overall so far. The problem is, like, he hasn't been hitting. Now, he's been better this past week. he's had a really weird month off the field with the stomach bug, losing all the weight, trying to gain the weight back, trying to balance all that with the work that has gone into, again, acclimating to the shortstop position. I think the question of all this, and Dave Roberts was asked about it, is, okay, it's great that he's playing shortstop better. Is that eating into his offensive abilities? Especially for a guy who, like, if you talk to Dodger hitting coaches, the marvel of Mookie Betts as a hitter is that given his size, given his physical limitations, the margin for error is so small in his swing. Like, if there's ever any little thing that's off, it kind of looks like we've seen the last couple of weeks where he's batting in the 230s and hitting pop-ups every other trip to the plate. And the magic of him is that he's able to, like, keep his swing so in sync for such long periods over the course of the season. And I think it's fair to wonder, like, does playing short make that challenge harder? And even if the shortstop's been good, you know, is that worth it? So, like, what do you take away from this opening month about how that?
If there's any question, get him back in the outfield. If there's any question at all about shortstop, get him back to right field, because it's not he's
to right field. I mean, my guess is the fallback plan this year is going to be second base. I don't think the outfield is as on the table as it was last year.
Get him where he can worry about his hitting, because his hitting that's his main thing. That's what he MVP. That's what he leads with. I mean, don't mess with it. Just don't mess with it.
I just can't believe that losing how much did he lose? 15, 17 pounds, or whatever.
Dylan can't imagine losing 17 pounds. Can you? That's pretty obvious.
Even with his fat-free water.
Yeah, you got fat-free water?
Got fat-free water.
Oh, what the?
Someone's going to be very excited to see that in the comments section.
Usually when you're like throwing up or whatever, going to the bathroom a ton, you're losing water weight, right? And it's not just a matter of like right. It's not just a matter of like let me just drink 20 pounds of water, right? Because your muscles have to absorb that again, and I just think that stuff takes time.
Drinking 20 pounds of water wasn't the answer there, Dr. Dylan.
Going to the bathroom a lot, is that diagnosis?
No, so like I just can't believe that it's that like, you know, that hasn't affected him offensively. You know, he was just his new. I feel like I'm always promoting his podcast. Well, but there's like a lot of good stuff on there. He had Teoscar on the first episode of this, and he talked about, right, like they were talking about like home run derby, right, because Teoscar won last year. And Mookie was talking about how he doesn't want to do it because basically just even to clear the fence, right, to hit a home run.
We saw how it looked. When
you know, he has to swing 100%. And so I just think if the strength is down, obviously like stuff like that's going to happen.
Right.
You know, kind of the one.
And I think yes, that is a fair kind of gray area when trying to diagnose like why the offense has.
And here's the other thing too is that his body, for better or worse, he's starting to kind of look like a shortstop now, right? He's kind of got this like leaner, more wiry type look about him. And I asked him about that when he was coming off the field one day. I was like, hey, like, I don't know if I'm just imagining things, but like your body looks different. And he talked about, yeah, like my trainer has me doing different stuff now. So, you know, and I think there's a reason that he looks better at shortstop, right? He has now had a full off season to work on this. They're kind of pot committed there. And I think at this point, you just have to believe that he's going to, right? I mean, he's Mookie Betts.
You ask a player on the field if his body looked different.
Yes.
And his reaction was he answered the question.
Yeah.
Good, that worked, yeah. Are you all surprised that more players, speaking of going to the bathroom.
Great reporting, Dylan.
Are you surprised that more players don't leave the field to go to the bathroom during games?
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I think they probably do.
A guy playing center field.
Oh, like during an inning?
During an inning.
Well, Manny went into the Green Monster that one time, right?
That would be a real if that's happening, that's a real lack of planning on the players' part.
True.
Like I would hope that they.
I'm actually kind of surprised that more guys don't miss at bats because of like bathroom breaks. Like they mistime it.
I'm surprised that we don't have more. I think we had an umpire delay for a guy getting back onto the field a few seconds late at the start of an inning after going to the bathroom. That one surprises me because they are just stuck out there.
Yeah, no, and the whole game. I mean, they don't. They're out there for 3 hours.
Maybe this.
I can't last 30 minutes.
Maybe this is the next story you have to work on. I wonder if anybody's ever worn diapers like those astronauts.
Just a colostomy bag out there.
It all depends.
Hey, good one.
It's the kind of highbrow discussion that Dr. Pat is paid for.
Dodgers have the best record in baseball.
You're getting on an airplane.
I have a 10-game road trip coming up. It'd be great.
10-game road trip, Plaschke. We don't have to work for a while.
That's awesome.
That's what I'm saying. He's like, oh, you're cribbing on a column. I'm like, well, it's not going to be a column coming in the next 2 weeks. So, all right.
All right.
We'll talk to you guys next week. Thank you for watching.